Hello everybody, thank you very much for joining me today for another Twilight Zone video in my Twilight Zone review series, where I rank every episode of the original Twilight Zone from my least favorite to my favorite. Today I'm going to be talking about number 20 on the list, the new exhibit, credited to Charles Beaumont but written by Jerry Sohl due to Mr. Beaumont's unfortunate health issues at the time. This episode was directed by John Brahm. It is a season 4 hour-long episode, and as always there will be spoilers. So the new exhibit is my second favorite season 4 hour-long episode, and I think that's because even though it's a TV episode, it feels a lot like a 1950s horror film. I think this really works well as an hour-long episode. The concept of the plot is great, and I think it really works here. Martin Balsam is great in the lead, and the rest of the cast is fine in support. So this one starts with a man named Martin, and he works in a wax museum, and he's telling a group of guests about some wax figures of famous killers. When the tour ends, he goes to see his boss, Mr. Ferguson, who tells him the museum is closing down because they aren't making enough money, and also he is retiring, and Martin is not happy about any of this at all, but it seems like Mr. Ferguson's mind is already made up. So Martin, concerned about what will happen to the wax figures of the famous killers, decides he is going to take them home and keep them in the basement of his house. And I have to say the figures themselves are really eerie and creepy. So Martin also has a wife named Emma, and naturally she is not too happy about having the figures in her basement. The figures also need a lot of air conditioning to keep them preserved, and soon all of the couple's savings are gone. Martin doesn't seem too worried about this at all and doesn't want to be bothered. He just stays in the basement to take care of the figures. So Emma gets more and more concerned about Martin, and at this point she goes to talk to her brother about the situation. He suggests that she shut off the air conditioning at night when Martin doesn't know about it, and that will take care of the problem. So now desperate, Emma tries to sneak downstairs at night to carry out the plan in a very creepy and atmospheric scene, but Emma fails as she is stabbed by one of the figures and is a goner. The next day Martin finds Emma's body and is worried because no one will believe that a wax figure did this, so he buries the body right there. At this point Emma's brother Dave comes by wondering what is going on, but when he goes into the basement, another one of the figures does him in, and he is also a goner. So some time passes, and Mr. Ferguson, the museum owner, comes by and tells Martin he sold the figures. But now Martin doesn't want to give them up. He's definitely become obsessed at this point. So as Martin leaves the room, Mr. Ferguson is also done in by one of the figures, and he is also a goner. So Martin comes back and finds Mr. Ferguson's body. Now he's really upset and decides to get rid of the figures once and for all. But the wax figures come to life and tell Martin that he is the actual killer. I thought this was a great twist that really worked well. So we go back to another museum, and there is a wax figure of Martin with all of the other wax figures of famous killers, so we know that he was definitely a killer himself. So overall, a very solid twist and a creepy ending. It's very interesting to watch Martin get more and more obsessed with the figures and eventually lead to his own downfall. I thought the pacing of the episode was really good for an hour-long episode, and I loved that this was more of a horror-themed episode. It was a nice change of pace. I thought it had a great creepy atmosphere and mood, and everything just worked really well from beginning to end. So overall, I do consider the new exhibit a classic season 4 episode and a very memorable Twilight Zone episode overall, and that's why it comes in at number 20 on the list. As always, feel free to let me know if you liked this episode, the new exhibit, or not. Thanks for your support, and thanks for watching.